I have lived both in China and Hong Kong, and I saw with my own eyes the culture of coercion by the Chinese authorities over there. To displease Beijing by advocating for human rights or even the principle of freedom would invite certain arrests or even you just simply disappeared. But you know what? Who are we to interfere? Who are we to ask them, to tell them what to do, how to govern? How would we like it if they were to tell us how to do things in Australia, in our own country?
Geoff?
Yeah, it's a very complex question, but a very good one. Look, I mean, in the past, and I used to chair it on the Australian side at one stage, we had a bilateral human rights dialogue with China. And we would raise a whole raft of issues. I think it was a very good mechanism. They would also raise issues with us, Indigenous conditions and so on. And that was, I think, a very healthy dialogue. For a mix of reasons, that no longer exists. But the Australian government, representing the Australian community, takes a strong and firm and consistent position on human rights. We are a member of the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights. And to your point about it being a national issue, signatories to the UN Declaration see human rights as universal and non-separable. So from an Australian point of view, we will listen and recognise that some countries will say, well, we have prioritised economic development and growth over freedom of speech, for example. But for Australia, we don't recognise that. We say all human rights are equal and equally valued. What you do about it, particularly when you're dealing with big and powerful states, is another question. I think the key thing for us is to always be consistent and persistent. And I think pretty much Australian governments of both sides, over my almost 30 years of involvement directly in it, have done that. And I think we're recognised as a strong advocate globally for human rights.
Jason, you've got parents from Hong Kong.
I do. And I thought Hong Kong was a magical place. It just had, as you know, Hong Kong, the old Hong Kong, that magical combination of the Cantonese and the British administration. It was a magical place. And sadly, I think a lot of that is lost now. But I'd say this, I think a nation's foreign policy has to absolutely be an authentic reflection of that country's values and its character. If it's not, it's just fake. People know that. So we cannot be anything other than authentically Australian when we project our foreign policy. And I think countries, such as China, respect that. And I would say, even though we've been advocating always consistently, regardless of the government, I think, for human rights, we managed to secure the release of Cheng Lei in that, and I think that was a very important achievement.